All right. I think we're rolling. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for Highlight Spark's very special keynote session, How Women-Led Brands are shaping conscious consumption. My name is Dana Kim. I am founder and CEO of Highlight. We are a product intelligence platform. But more importantly, today I'm really excited to be joined by two powerhouse product builders, Scout Brisson, CEO at Biswa, Better For You Aperitifs, and Kelly Murphy, General Manager at Lola, Better For You Feminine Care. So I could go on and on about how wonderful you both are, but I will leave it to you to introduce yourselves. Let's start with some brand intros. Kelly, can you begin by telling us who you are, who Lola is, and delve a bit deeper into Lola's mission and vision?
Yes, absolutely. I'm excited to be here and thanks for having me. So I am general manager at Lola, and Lola is a better for you, as mentioned, clean and organic feminine care company. We provide clean and organic solutions for period care, for sexual wellness, and for postpartum. And we really have three pillars to our business. So clean ingredients is, first and foremost, and transparency about those ingredients. Second is advocacy for women's rights, which is huge for us. It has been kind of part of our foundation since the brand launched about 10 years ago. And then third pillar is just convenience. So being where women and menstruators need us and making ourselves as accessible as possible, whether that's through D2C subscription, retail partnerships, et cetera. So our mission is really about at the core, making it possible for women and menstruators to enjoy and embrace their bodies and to remove any friction, discomfort, irritation, pain that kind of prevents that journey for them.
Amazing. Scout, your turn. Let's hear about Biswa and your mission and vision.
Sure. So Biswa, we make non-alcoholic sparkling aperitifs. The brand was co-founded by Katy Perry and the master distiller Morgan McLaughlin back in 2020. They actually met when they were pregnant, both for the first time. So they obviously were in a stage of their lives where they weren't drinking, but both of them were non-alc consumers as well, even before that point in their journey. So when I think about Biswa, I mean, we just launched a new spicy margarita flavor. We have a non-alcoholic Aperol spritz. Yeah, I'm biased, obviously, but it's really good. But I feel like we are here to really provide options and make, whether it's networking events or dinner parties, feel more inclusive, or even your night at home where you are feeling like you need that glass of wine to unwind and relax, but you don't actually want to have the after effects of it. So really have seen this whole movement around non-alcoholic options, and fortunate to be part of the team that's leading the way at Biswa.
Amazing. Maybe news to both of you. I think, Scott, I may have mentioned this when I saw you out in LA, but I'm actually pregnant myself, and I totally resonate with that need state.
Congrats. Yes, congrats.
Thank you. I totally resonate with wanting to have some spirit celebration at home when I'm out. And I did just see the spicy margarita launch. I haven't yet gotten my hands on it. I will definitely.
We'll send you some.
But that mission hits close to home currently.
Mm-hmm.
So both of you are leaders at incredible brands that were founded with the female experience in mind. And you really sort of expanded beyond that. Both Biswa and Lola now serve consumers of many different demographics. And you have a lot of DNA, and your roots are in striving to meet unmet needs for underserved groups. Can you tell me a bit more about how those origins have sort of informed your product development life cycle for women and femme who continue to influence the work you do today?
Yeah, I'm happy to start. I would say for Biswa, we've had a really interesting product development journey. When we first launched the brand, we started with more abstract cocktail concepts. And so we had 3 flavors that were called Golden Hour, Champignon Dreams, and Purple Loon. Probably those names don't mean a whole lot to you in terms of the flavor that you're going to experience. And then we launched our first 1-for-1, which was a non-alcoholic rosé. If you've tried non-alcoholic dealcoholized wine products on the market, you may know that it's a really challenging taste profile to nail, and it's oftentimes more expensive than what you're paying for your favorite bottle of with the alcohol wine. So when we were formulating that flavor, I was really afraid. I was really afraid of letting our customer down because we were layering fruit juices, botanical extracts, teas, right, to really replicate a rosé-like taste profile, but it doesn't taste exactly like a rosé. And so when we are thinking about whether it's the rosé or any product development, we have to have our customer part of the testing process. And that's actually something that we didn't do a lot of before we launched the brand, which was probably a mistake in hindsight, but I feel like we were able to course correct, and it was, okay, let's get, whether it's like me showing up at my investor who has a yoga studio in LA and sampling the product and collecting feedback, or making sure that our feedback isn't just coming from really coastal communities like LA or, New York on the other side, sending it to a friend who has a group of, girlfriends in South Bend, Indiana, and getting their feedback on it. And so I think it's been about being hyper vigilant to like, what is the feedback that's coming in the door? So anything that customers are putting, whether it's NPS or through customer service tickets, like I read every single customer service ticket, and then thinking about like, how do we know that's like one voice or 3 data points or whatever it is that are representative of a larger pool of people that are out there thinking or feeling similar things, and then just not sharing it. And then making sure that you follow that through and you continue to ask them questions and listen to them when you're in that development process. Because you can convince yourself of anything you want to with data. And so it's really about making sure that you're like testing your own assumptions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. One quick follow-up question for you, Scout. I think you talked about the origin story and the sort of idea for Dissois, and you've talked about expanding the product portfolio, and I'm assuming the audience in focus. So how do you think about who is today's Dissois consumer, who's tomorrow's Dissois consumer? How has that expanded over time?
Yeah, I mean, we are predominantly women, like probably 90% plus of our customer base are women. We actually started a little bit on the older side than what we were targeting. So we were seeing that like Gen X women were really reaching for our products. They were the ones who were buying it and subscribing on D2C. I think as our brand has gotten more and more on shelf, we've started to reach that millennial woman who is really who we're going after. But I'll give you an example. The spicy margarita that we're talking about, I feel like a lot of our customers online weren't as excited about that flavor because they don't like spice, whereas all my friends are obsessed with it because we all love spicy margaritas. And so I think for us, we're thinking about like, okay, how do we get to the core customer, millennial consumer? She's driving the purchasing of this broader non-alcoholic category. Know that there will be bleed upwards because there often is. And then, I wouldn't say just in our current line that men are a focus for us whatsoever, but we're just trusting that like the wives and girlfriends are going to like put it in the fridge. And then like my fiance, the guys are going to be crushing it on their own too.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Super helpful. Kelly, tell us a bit about the Lola journey and the product development journey you've been on.
Yeah, for sure. And I also want to say, Scout, I've already learned from you how to pronounce aperitif, which I have definitely not been saying correctly. So I actually don't drink, and so I'm so excited to be kind of partnered with you here. But yeah, so Lola was really founded again 10 years ago as a period care brand, and was founded in a time when there just weren't a lot of or not a lot of accessible organic period care options. And so the founders had really said, it was a moment of realization when they realized how many chemicals were in period care products, particularly tampons, and realized like, oh my God, we have to change this. And so, we then, rolled out sexual wellness, let's call it maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and rolled out postpartum late last year. So that's our newest product launch. And while particularly in the sexual wellness category, that's where we've seen the most broadening of demographics in that there are now men buying our products. Even when they are buying our products, they tend to be buying our condoms or our lube for the woman in their life or for experiences with the woman in their life. And shout out to them. And so, really our brand is still centering women, centering menstruators, centering kind of them identifying people. And so, that's our core, that's our foundation. And we also know that research into women's health and women's care in general is lacking, is significantly underfunded, continues to be more and more kind of underfunded. And so our aim is to try to kind of fill that void. And so for period care, we know that women and menstruators are experiencing unnecessary pain, unnecessary, itching, irritation, because of the chemicals that are in more conventional products. And so we're looking to try to fill that void during this gap of, research that can really kind of tell us more broadly how we can improve our healthcare and our experiences. With sexual wellness, we're looking to try to close the pleasure gap that exists between kind of men and women, and make it so that women can experience more pleasure and less kind of friction, less pain in that as well. And then postpartum, moms, our new moms, very busy, very stressed. How can we make that experience less stressful, less painful, and just give peace of mind that you're, picking Lola off the shelf? It's organic. You don't have to worry about that. So that's really what we will continue to be focused on in terms of, demographics evolving. For the first several years of the business, heavy on millennial women and menstruators. We're starting to skew a little bit younger, and that's part of our aim as well, just like everyone else, to kind of capture Gen Z. But knowing that period care makes up the bulk of our business, we're always going to aim for Gen Z, Gen Alpha, talking to moms and giving moms resources, to give moms and guardians kind of resources where they can get their young girls started on and educated about, their safety in their menstrual cycle and what they can use. So yeah, that's where we are now.
Kelly, I'm actually so curious, before you launched your sexual wellness line, did you know that was going to be picked up more by male consumers, or were you surprised?
I think, that rollout predates me, but from my understanding, I think that was certainly not the intention, right? It was very focused on close the pleasure gap, women, and improving experiences for women, and again, solving for a gap, right? A void in the market where sexual wellness brands just weren't speaking to women, weren't speaking women's language, weren't focusing on that. And so I think there was some surprise, and we've been digging into that. We did a big sexual wellness survey actually just last month, and to kind of dig into that. And the segment is still pretty small, but it's there. And that's where we kind of learned, they're buying for a partner. We also, the more we lean into Pride Month, Pride campaigns, we get kind of a community there as well that's using the product. And we're really excited about that. We're all about inclusivity, and we want to be able to reach anyone who kind of feels like they've been underserved by the current market.
Wow. It's pretty amazing to follow the story of where Lola started, and the focus on period care and the expansion over time in terms of not just product portfolio, but mission, closing the pleasure gap, and then therefore audiences and really consumers and humans that you are serving. Question for both of you, and maybe we'll stick with you, Kelly, since you've just talked about it, but how have you thought about focusing on the core and really doubling down on let's own period care and really crush this category that we know so well, versus expanding and innovating into new spaces. And I'm curious, Scout, on the portfolio side, you've just launched a new flavor. You have a wonderful suite of flavors now. How do you think about, protect and strengthen the core versus net new innovation and launches?
Mm-hmm. It's such a good question, and one that I have been thinking about a lot in the past year and a half. So we were acquired about a year and a half, and when you're going through an acquisition process, it's all about numbers, it's all about profitability, et cetera. And so had to spend a lot of time thinking about, yes, who is our core customer? Where are we going to kind of generate the most profit and the most revenue? And so that kind of forced us to do that exercise of thinking, who is that? And for us, it's really our period care D2C subscribers. That's our heart and soul. Those are our brand ambassadors. So many of them have been with us for literally 8, 9, 10 years. And we're so grateful for them. We will protect them at all costs. And so, from the business side of that, LTV, right? It's subscription, it's really strong LTV. And so that's kind of where we need to spend our time focusing. At the same time, from a reach and an awareness perspective, as well as a public access perspective, you have to start thinking really critically about retail, right? And retailers want to see innovation. And so realistically, I would say that we kind of, the first year post-acquisition, kind of deprioritized innovation. We said, let's make sure that those subscribers, period care subscribers, are really protected. They have everything that they need, understand what they need. But then in the past 6 months or so, we're kind of leaning back into, where can we innovate? What do our customers more broadly want? And sexual wellness as a category offers a lot of opportunity for innovation. With period care, it's like you can always make things a little bit better, more absorbent. You can improve the clean profile. You can improve the environmentally sustainable profile. With sexual wellness, you can go crazy. And so we're doing a lot of research there. We want to do it right. We want to stick to our values there. But yeah, that's kind of what we're thinking about right now. And postpartum, that was actually a pretty retail-led decision where we were seeing a gap in the market specifically on retailer shelves for organic options for postpartum. And so that drove that kind of innovation process. And now we're iterating across omnichannel.
Yeah. Super interesting. It's interesting, I think, and I'm curious, Scout, if you're finding the same, but retailer-driven innovation is definitely a theme that we hear across our partners, our brand partners, and some of our retailer partners in terms of asking us what we're seeing and can we help some of their brands and suppliers innovate. But it's very, very cool that the Lola brand has so much permission to play across all of these very sensitive product categories. So very cool.
Yeah, it's interesting, Kelly, hearing you talk about it, because I think Diswa is at such a different point in our life as a brand than where Lola is, and in ways where you're like, okay, yeah, we know what's working, what's driving profit, what's driving the most revenue. That even the channel is different, right? In terms of our focus is very much away from D2C, which is different than where we started. I feel like we've had the very unfortunate supply chain time suck and resource suck of one of our formats of our product, which you won't see really on our website or on shelf, which is our wine bottle format, 750 ml. And so I feel like I've been sort of taught maybe the hard way through that process how time consuming and resource intensive product development can be without a lot of the upside and reward. And that's a SKU that we've been working on. I think they started working on making that product before I was even involved. So we're 5 years, right? Or 4.5 years into trying to figure out how to successfully manufacture that product. At the same time, once you have a really strong, what I've seen with Diswa, once you have a really strong R&D process, then you feel like, okay, we're moving, we're flying, we can do this. And now at this point, I feel like our team has a playbook for how we get to what the next flavor is. what is the goal of that flavor, right? Is that where the conversation has to start? Is it for a partnership with a major retailer? Is it a seasonal play? Is it to be a core SKU that lives on shelf? Is it a test and learn type of opportunity like we did with Tres Rosé? And so I feel like we've got that part of it really, really dialed, and we're figuring out okay, if we want to add a different format or a new product line, like how do we go about that, and being even more rigorous in the way that we approach the like consumer feedback part of it. So I spend a ton of time with Morgan, our distiller, on product strategy. I feel like she is the craftsperson, the creative, the like wizard when it comes to actually formulating Dissois. And then I get to be the like unsexy, ex McKinsey business person in the process, but we make a really good team on it. So it's a ton of fun.
Yeah, amazing. Scout, just to sort of double click into some of the things that you just shared, how do you, when you're looking at your product portfolio and you have this newly launched spicy margarita, you have your 1-for-1 Tres Rosé, you have some of your OGs, your golden hour, how frequently are you going back to, when you look at your assortment and the portfolio that you have, are you saying like, let's really look at golden hour, and is that the best possible beverage it can be, versus let's consider a white wine or a whatever it might be, a mojito? Like, how are you thinking about when you invest time in product development, focusing that on existing versus like net new?
Mm-hmm. Golden hour is the perfect example, because that liquid has always performed really well. And yet the packaging and the story that we're telling around the liquid isn't moving the product off of the shelves the way that our other flavors are moving. I'll give you an example. So Champignon Dreams, which I mentioned, Morgan used to describe it as like an Aperol spritz on acid. Like, it was a weird, funky flavor. And we looked at that SKU and we're like, this really just needs to be a non-alcoholic Aperol spritz. So we sunset that flavor and launched Spritz Italiano in its place. I think we have bounced back and forth, like St. Moritz Mule, which was our winter après-ski twist on a Moscow Mule, and we launched last fall. That was a maybe 3 or 4 month development process where we were just like, this is a Hail Mary. Let's see if we can get it done, drum up the demand, sales team go run after it, D2C spin up a marketing plan, and it worked. At the same time, we were simultaneously starting development on, what golden hour will become over time. And so I feel like you can really have multiple balls in the air to like directly answer your question, where we're like, sometimes actually creative development and product development are really rarely linear processes. So I feel like if you have a couple horses in the race, you get to just like flex into, well, we got that Hail Mary, so let's run with it, while this other piece is just like chugging along in the background.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, I love to ask the question of like core versus new, or renovation versus innovation. And the answer is it has to be both. Almost all of the time, it has to be both. You have to make sure that your existing portfolio is tight and performing and competing and hitting expectations, while also thinking about the future. Yeah. Both of you alluded to the sort of omnichannel nature of sales in consumer products today. And both of you have really strong roots in D2C. We'll have a ton of brand developers, marketers on listening in on this. And I'm curious what advice you have for them in terms of just evolving your strategy, how to think about omnichannel, prioritize channels. How do you really ensure you're meeting shoppers, where they are? I know, Callie, you mentioned earlier some of the retail strategy being with the goal of meeting shoppers where they are, and that's what you did as well. So, maybe Kelly, starting with you, tell us about how you've aligned your omni-channel and where you show up with your shopper and your customer.
Yeah, it's a great question. And I personally, I'm a D2C girly. I came up through D2C, and so that's definitely my kind of bread and butter, heart and soul. And that's really where you can, that's where you build a brand. That's where you can tell the brand story. And I also kind of came up through the D2C, startup world. And so, and to kind of what you're alluding to, I think to a degree is that bubble is kind of burst, right? Or it's in the process of bursting. And that shift has been a little bit painful for sure. And so um, I think ultimately it's good, which might be a crazy thing to say, but I think ultimately it's good because while it is uncomfortable and we've all had to kind of figure out new strategies, I think being forced to, the shift is really toward profitability and away from kind of growth at all costs. And I think that's ultimately good because we're all being forced to find ways to get our unit economics right from the beginning. And I think that's going to allow a lot of brands that are trying to do good and trying to disrupt to be more sustainable, to rather than seeing so many of these arcs of like peak and then eventually go out of business. My hope is that kind of from this shift, we'll see more of like, okay, we're gradually growing and, a lot more of these businesses will be able to just kind of stick around. And so I think my advice probably is we've been really rigorous about this at Lola is getting those unit economics in place and really adhering to them, adhering to your ideal kind of EBITDA margin across omnichannel, right? So it can sometimes be easier to do on D2C. It can be easier to preserve margin on D2C. Really be mindful about preserving margin on Amazon, even where it's hard. And if it's too hard, consider like, is that the right channel for you and your business? Having that margin profile right for the retailers that you partner with. And I will say we took a step back post-acquisition from some retailers because it wasn't the right market fit for us. It wasn't the right margin profile for us. And so we're now saying who are the right long-term retailer partners for us and what are the retailer partners with shared values. And so, we're going a little bit slower, but trying to be more strategic. And I think that's kind of like the overarching, like how the shift is going is like, okay, go slow. It used to be like move fast and break things. Now it's like go slow and be strategic. And so that's really my advice. And the other thing that we at Lola have been trying to do is, we've got the omni-channel business piece of it, but then how can we look at marketing partnerships in a new way? If part of our mission is about making our products available in public spaces, we launched a partnership with the New York Liberty and Barclays Center. We have a partnership. This is my announcement, I guess. We have a partnership with the Minnesota Lynx and Target Center in Minneapolis launching as well. Thank you. So press release to come next week. And so we're trying to find these big spaces or these natural spaces where we can work with partners like that to offer our product for free when that wasn't kind of previously available. So that's been an interesting kind of pivot in the strategy too, that I think a lot of brands could potentially lean into.
Yeah. Congrats on that exciting announcement. And such an incredible position to be in. I'm sure some of our earlier stage brands will be like, what, saying no to retail, pulling back, fewer doors.
Yeah.
But so important to be thoughtful and strategic, to your point. Just to round out the partnerships piece, very exciting about your new partnership, your existing one with the New York Liberty. Women's sports is clearly a theme. We talk about brand partnerships a ton. We actually test a ton of brand partnerships here at Highlight. Any advice or tips for other, consumer brands who are looking for ways to build meaningful, values-aligned partnerships?
Yeah, I think two things, and it might sound obvious, but the first one I would just say, like, stay true to your values. We were thinking about, we've got this bucket that we can spend against awareness. We've been calling 2025 our awareness year, right? Last year was our profitability year. This is our awareness year where we've earned the right to spend a little bit more. that's still not, the bucket is not that big, right? And so we have to be really mindful about where we're spending that. And I've even had to be pushed by others in the organization to remember, like, let's stay true to our mission, our values, what feels like the most natural extension. And that's what everyone is going to be, the public as well is going to be really excited about. And that's where we landed, with women's sports. What also makes it natural is I'm a 4-year season ticket holder to the New York Liberty. And when I started chasing this 2 years ago, it was honestly selfish, it was personal preference, something that seemed like it could be an exciting match. But when you really look at the data, and this would be advice as well, there's the obvious piece of people who are interested in women's sports probably care about their health and their bodies. And so there's a natural fit there as well. But we dug into data to kind of prove out that this was the right partnership for us. And what we found is that amongst fans of women's sports, those fans are much more likely to trust influencers, female athlete influencers, and trust what they say and actually make purchases based on that. Thought that was super interesting. And so we went influencer first. We worked with some WNBA, players before kind of leaning in more thoroughly. And so that I would say kind of, look for the data, but really just kind of stick to your core values.
Love it. Yeah. Go with your gut is sometimes the best advice you can remind folks of when you're drowning in data. Awesome. Scout, tell us a bit more about your omni-channel strategy, how that's evolved, and how you're meeting shoppers where they are. You alluded to a bit of this earlier, but curious to hear more.
Yeah, and I would say the very tactical advice that I have for anyone is just benchmark your category. Like, look, you can go on Facebook ads library and say, okay, what other beverage brands my size are running paid ads? What about beverage brands that are 10 times my size? Are they running paid ads? What does their presence look like on Amazon? Get that inside intel as much as you can. I mean, I think there will continue to be new channels that are popping up. I feel like TikTok Shop is a huge one that people are talking about, and one that I know, for instance, I've talked to a lot of supplement brands that are absolutely killing it on TikTok Shop. We're trying to figure out, does it make sense to be there as a beverage brand? So I would say, I feel like this is two-part, which is I'm very grateful that Dessoir started as a D2C business, because it D2C native, digitally native businesses really are forced to think about how their brand shows up in multiple digital channels, which I think a lot of retail first brands just don't have to do necessarily, and then are therefore missing out on. You also obviously have this direct line of contact with your customer. You have a lot of opportunities to leverage there. And at the same time, I think as Kelly was describing for Dessoir, it has become a way less focused channel for us as the wholesale business has started to emerge. We're building a new category. So when you walk into a Target today and you see that there's a 4-foot set of non-alcoholic adult beverages, that didn't exist when we launched our business. And so I feel like a lot of it is staying on top of what are the channels that are merging, continuing to be vigilant when it comes to all the things that Kelly talked about, which is like, you can wake up and have been crushing D2C for a year, and then it's no longer making sense. And like, that's okay. And that's something that you have to just work around. We are at a point where we're definitely doubling down on retail. That's been, hugely valuable for our business. I think knowing beverage, it will continue to be hugely valuable. We're starting to explore on-premise channels. So really thinking about restaurants, bars, and hotels, which are, again, if you look at how independent spirits companies are built, that is their bread and butter. And so I look at those as comps of like what matters to consumers and to brand equity and trial driving. And that's an important one for us to play in. I think Amazon continues to be important for beverage brands, and we'll see about TikTok Shop.
Amazing. And tell us a bit more about, I think, Kelly talked a bit about brand partnerships and increasing awareness by way of values-aligned partners. Obviously, Dessoir has its roots in incredible founding team by way of Katie and Morgan, but how do you think about brand partnerships and increasing awareness via that channel?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we haven't done, I'm trying to think, I don't think we've done anything at the type of scale that Kelly, it sounds like you and Lola have done. Although, again, if I look at like track record for beverage, I mean, think about the US Open, right? Like what brands do you see plastered everywhere? Think about festivals. Think about like there is so much money in beverage that goes towards massive, massive partnerships. We'll get there. Right now, we really focus on just having, I'd say, more of like your macro versus micro influencers. We focus on the micro partnerships. So it might be, for instance, like around Spritz Italiano launch, we had, if there's like a great sandwich shop, Giada in Venice, that we did a cool partnership with. And we had a partnership with Goop Kitchen and had the Spritz on their menu for the summer and a bunch of marketing around it. We are partnering all the time to have products served at events. And I think that's been an amazing way to just like get the word out there. Or even with Oat Margarita, our whole campaign is around this idea of like hotspots because people can, in a fun way, mispronounce oat as hot. And we have all of these partnerships with Pilates studios, and they are filming the most incredible content as part of it that we're blown away just by the type of UGC and reach that we're getting on social through these partnerships.
Yeah, amazing. I, as a follower of the brand on Instagram and of you, I totally see all that amazing, incredible organic UGC. So very, very helpful to hear how you think about that strategy.
Yeah. Well, and it's working when, like, I literally had 3 friends over the weekend text me photos of DeSwa at a Pilates studio. And it wasn't like I sent them there, right? Like, you're just like, oh, we're getting in front of the right demographic by doing it. And I think you have to, Kelly, I love your, like, this is the awareness year. Because I think when you're doing the, like, stuff where you feel like you're throwing it out into the ether and seeing what happens, you've got to listen for the, like, qualitative signs of this is working.
Totally. It's so hard. And I think especially as like D2C girlies who like are all about attribution, and you have the data, you own the data, you can see the numbers, like spending against awareness is hard. You have to just accept like it's not going to be attributable, but to your point, you still have to get the feedback somewhere, and it's likely going to be kind of all qualitative or kind of patching things together. It also really resonated, you've mentioned TikTok Shop a few times, and I just want to say TikTok Shop is so hard. It's so like its own thing. And I really admire you guys kind of, committing there. And I know.
Well, we haven't
yet,
so maybe we should chat, Kelly.
Sure. But no, I think you guys are really well suited for that world. So yeah, I'm excited for that for you guys.
Thank you.
Awesome. We didn't do proper like personal intros, but you both come from really dynamic and diverse career histories. I'll start with you, Kelly. You spent your early career in consumer insights. How has that foundation influenced your career, and what advice do you have to others who are looking to build towards brand leadership and to a position like where you are today?
Yeah, for sure. Yes. So I did the ad agency thing for, I think, about 4 years. And as part of that, I had a stint at Publicis where I was part of the search and data science team. Doesn't exist anymore, but was a beautiful moment in time where we had, a 30-person team made up of behavioral scientists, of engineers, of data scientists, strategists, and then search, like paid search and SEO kind of strategists and experts as well. And really the goal was to scrape open source data sources and then package that into insights. So if, for instance, like Garnier came to us and they said, oh, we want to get more into men's hair care, tell us everything that you can kind of find about how men feel about their hair, what they think about their hair. We would do this huge project of like, Google and census data and just anything that was available and kind of package it up. And I'm so grateful for that time and that experience. It was such a privilege to be around so many different types of insight specialists and learn from them. And I think what really stuck with me is the rigor that it takes to eliminate or mitigate bias from results. And that is something that I've been able to kind of take through my career if you don't have a behavioral scientist on your team, which you probably don't, like what can we do to ensure that this, survey that we're sending out to customers, that the questions are phrased in a certain way so that we're eliminating bias. It can also be easy. A lot of us are, if we're at mission-driven brands, we have a personal investment. It can feel like you're the brand and the brand is you. How do you remove that and kind of, again, be really rigorous about who's my customer? What's the diversity of my customer? What are they all saying they get out of this brand? And, kind of working at getting the data in that kind of unbiased way. So that's stuck with me. And I think there's also a story to be told there around data when kind of used ethically can kind of be a great equalizer. And so I think that's all kind of been bubbled up to throughout my career to where we've gotten here. I think you had a second part of the question, which was about, I forgot it.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I mean, it was advice for, folks on the rise who are hoping to be where you are someday, leading a thriving mission-driven brand. Yeah, any career advice you'd have for them, given you've gotten to a really incredible, inspiring place.
Yeah, I took kind of a circuitous route to get here. So I started my career in book publishing, which people are often like, "Whoa, crazy." Worked in book publishing at Penguin for 4.5 years. Then I worked at ad agencies. Then I went in-house, and just had a lot of kind of different roles. I would say kind of don't be afraid of that. I feel like I talk to a lot of people who are like, okay, I'm on a path. I'm, even in my agency days, a lot of people were like, well, I can't leave, this is my path. I'm an ad agency person. I got to stick with this. I think there can be a lot of benefit from having kind of a diversity of experiences and being able to pull from, doing consumer insights briefly for 1.5 years and learning so much there and being able to then apply that when you're at kind of a mission-driven brand. And so I would say, it goes back a little bit to core values, right? There's core values for your brand, but the more you kind of listen to and stick to your core values and as you continue to move forward, kind of narrowing in on like, what is important to me? Is it really important that I'm, reporting into a female team, because those are, values that align with mine. That's going to make everything more natural and easier. Just sticking with that, I think you're going to end up in the right place. That was my experience, at least, and I'm really grateful for that.
Awesome. I love it. The circuitous paths are always the most interesting.
Totally.
And Scout, your background is similarly sort of diverse. You have a really unique background, neuroscience at MIT and consulting at McKinsey and then in venture capital. How have those experiences sort of shaped your journey and where you are now? And what advice do you have for folks who one day want to be the CEO of a fast-growing CPG brand?
Yeah, I know. As Kelly, as you were describing that, I was like, yeah, I think a lot of times I get this question of, how did you go from MIT to beverage? It's like, are you dumb? And I'm like, maybe a little naive. But I think about this a lot when it comes to my hiring philosophy, because, I was put into this position as CEO and didn't have the experience, right? And I think that happens a lot of times, right? It's like you have to do something for the first time always. And I really believe in people who are hungry, are ambitious, who want to be super scrappy, like to learn new things, want to be challenged, live outside their comfort zone. And so I always feel like for me, when I look back and I think about, well, why did I make each step that I made in my career. And I was always seeking growth, and I was always seeking more responsibilities than I deserved to have at my age. And I think a lot of McKinsey culture is really rooted in that. And it's like, I was 21 years old when I started working there and put into rooms with clients that had decades of experience, and I was expected to speak. I was expected to have an opinion and have a voice. And I think that very early on for me just shaped, my expectation for myself, right? And for the people that are a part of the team. So advice, I think your network is everything. Like when I think about how I got every single job that I've had after McKinsey, it's always been through my network. How I tend to hire people, like a warm intro or referral, go a really long way, because you have a pool of applicants that start to blur together. So I feel like it's about like chase being outside of your comfort zone, find the people who are willing to bet on you, and then just build your network so that those opportunities are front and center when you're looking for them.
Yeah, awesome. Okay. Oh man, I have so many more questions that we won't be able to get to for the sake of time. But I do want to make sure as we wrap that our viewers know where they can learn more about you, follow along your journeys, your brand's journeys. So where can they find you? Scout, you want to go first?
Sure. For hold on. Light moment. Very fitting with my background of light bulbs. Desoi on Instagram. So drink Desoi, DESOI. And then I am an avid LinkedIn poster. I try to share as many insights as possible. So you can definitely find me on LinkedIn and prepare to be spammed.
Amazing. We will post those details in a slide shortly. Kelly, what about you?
Yeah, awesome. That's a good nudge for me to be more active on LinkedIn. So I will try to follow your thought leadership example. But yeah, for me, LinkedIn, and then for the brand, definitely Instagram is, our biggest kind of Lola hub. But we're growing on TikTok. And so we'd love it if you followed us on TikTok. We're on Facebook, we're on LinkedIn. So all the places, whatever, is natural for you.
Love it. TikTok shop. Well, thank you both so much. This has been really fun, really inspiring, really informative. I love that 2025 is the year of awareness. Hopefully Highlight can play a tiny role in that by hosting and airing this incredible session. A huge shout out again to Scout and Kelly for joining us. Thank you all for listening in, and we hope to see you in the next session of Highlight Spark.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, can we just leave stage?